Hey everyone, Nicholas the Bard Andrea here from Enkindle Academy, and I wanted to share a few thoughts today about the upcoming Michaelmas festival. Even though it's about a month away, we are getting into the season approaching, and especially where I dwell up here in upstate New York, you can really start to feel it coming on. Maybe less so in Florida, but you'll get there eventually. Maybe in January. Yeah, anyhow. So where I am now, you can feel the season changing. The air is growing cooler. The clouds are elongating. There's little tinges of orange and red paint on the edges of some of the leaves and the higher boughs on the trees. The tomato plants are beginning to wither. The summer squash and zucchini plants are retiring for the summer. The butternuts are getting ready to harvest. They're ripening, and the apples are turning red and golden on their boughs and ready to pick. The corn's being gathered in many places, the wheat's being cut. And the sunflowers smile that big golden smile as they sort of droop after a long summer of hard work. And if you're lucky, you can start to smell those wafts of, peach cobbler or maybe even apple crisp, just wafting through the hallways of your home. So, why do we celebrate Michaelmas to begin with? Michaelmas is the being that Saint Joan of Arc referenced as having been her inspiration for these intuitions she had that guided her to help the French throw off the shackles of British rule back in the day. And so Michael is a being he's the archangel of courage. And so at this time of the year, the Perseid meteor showers, which come annually now, in the middle of the night, they're showering down their meteorites into the Earth's atmosphere. And so it's a re-infusion of this meteoric iron every year, which, by the way, can be made into homeopathic. It's very potent, especially when you're coming down with an illness. It's very energizing. And so Michael forges his sword every year at this time, and he uses it to tame the dragon at Michaelmas on September 29th. Now, who is this dragon that we're talking about? Well, he's the dragon of materialism. He's the beast that feeds on the human tendency to enslave ourselves to material life, to sense impressions, to the lusts and passions and desires, and the spiritual drowsiness that our physical life can engender, especially at the height of summer. Think about it this way. How many of us have had a romance blossom in the summer that felt so right? Oh, this is it. And by the autumn, it's like, whoa, what's that freight train that just hit me? That's what we're talking about. Now, of course, this can happen any time of the year. It's seen to be at its peak time during the summer. And I mean, just think of all the blissful days when in joy and comfort we could just, sort of like melt into the landscape, or like, on the beach. It's like, oh, it's so nice. And so hence, this is why Michaelmas comes at the end of September, because the season is changing, things are getting cooler. People are going back to work after vacation, children are going back to school. We're coming back into form, into organization, and we're getting ready to face the cold months ahead. And if you're in, a temperate or even a colder climate, and your work is connected to the earth, this is actually really important, right? Because you better have plans for the cold months when nothing is going to grow. Now, of course, I am speaking from the point of view of the Northern Hemisphere. I'm a Northern Hemispherian. But really, the reason we celebrate Michaelmas is because, in contrast to the beauty of sensuality, which is perhaps at its height in the summer, there's this corresponding unseen, super sensory reality that we all must eventually face if we want to become whole and complete human beings. And of course, the Lord of materialism would distract us endlessly through all sorts of distractions: drugs, alcohol, screen addiction, Netflix, food, shopping, even vacations. I mean, I love to take vacations, but I know some people who have a lot of money and they take a lot of vacations to extraordinary places, and you think they'd be happy. And then, you get to know them better and they tell you life is a piece of crap. This actually happened to me. And I'm like, wow, really? Distractions. So the Michaelic force in us must tame that urge to distract ourselves with materialism so we can ascend again to wholeness. So then comes the question of how we celebrate the Michaelmas festival. And of course, there's many ways. If you're at a Waldorf school or at, even a larger community celebration, depending on where you are, there's often harvest themes, right? Like potato sack races, folk music, and a hearty soup served with dragon bread. That's one of everybody's favorite parts. But it's also a festival of courage. So there's obstacle courses, balance beams, and of course that most courageous activity, bobbing for apples, which is not for the faint of face. That being said, from a spiritual standpoint, the ritual of Michael taming the dragon really should take center stage, because this is the whole reason for the festival. At Waldorf schools, it's often a pageant acted out by students. At the Asheville Waldorf School, where I used to teach, the pageant also included a bagpiper who piped in the heroic archangel, Michael. I wonder who that was. But what do you do as a homeschooler? Well, if there's no local event to join, I would suggest some of the following things. First of all, tell your children the story of St. George and the Dragon. It captures kind of the whole spirit of it. And then, depending on the age of your children, I would do some arts and or crafts with them. You could do some drawings, painting, sculptures. For the younger ones, you can make puppets and that sort of thing. You'll also want to give a nod to the season. That's really important to do in your homeschool life. So I would have a nature table with acorns, colored leaves, and other natural objects that you can find in the wilderness around this time of year. And then I would definitely do poems and songs related to this time of year. Just some really good ones. And then, for different grades, depending on the age, because they vary in complexity. So there's a book called The Waldorf Songbook by Brian Masters. That's a good one. For younger children, I would suggest One for the Golden Sun, Pentatonic Songs by Peter Oram, O-R-A-M. And then for poems, I would suggest A Journey Through Time in Verse and Rhyme. That's a really good poetry book. So I just want to conclude by saying this, what is the reality of Michael? Well, I've actually met people who have told me that they've met Michael spiritually without even ever hearing of him in the sensory world. And that's pretty extraordinary. Having a spiritual experience and meeting a being you didn't know existed, and then people say, oh yeah, that being's really there. I myself have had countless experiences in the classroom and life whereupon I've called upon the angels and had some most unexpected positive results. I've got some long stories about that, which I'm not going to go into here, but I'll tell you if you ask. But whatever your spiritual persuasion, whatever path you walk, whatever religion or spiritual path you walk, I imagine if you're watching this that you can connect with the need for human society to grow beyond materialism. Back during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, Sir Francis Bacon ushered in a new era of materialism, particularly materialistic science, with his scientific method. This was not a bad thing. It was a good thing. It was a necessary development for humanity because it helped us actually feel our individuality more acutely. But we were never meant to stay stuck there, is the thing. And far too many of us have become that way. I would say that the whole purpose of Earth life is, the whole purpose of having bodies and being individuals to begin with is to learn how to love. And that takes courage, especially, amidst irritations from the people around you, disagreements, Republicans and Democrats. So, all of that takes courage to become interested in somebody else, which is really the basis of love, is to take an interest. And so that all takes courage. And that to me is the ultimate meaning of Michaelmas. Okay. That's all I have for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.